but I want you to stand up and leave right now. Leave this room, get in your vehicle, and drive home. If you have anything in your name, your personal name, go get it out of your name. And that means starting an LLC or a corporation. Corporations aren't bad, but if you're a one-man shop, one-man trucking company, they almost always tell people to get an LLC. Then you come to me or your CPA or someone else that helps you with taxes. Then we decide what's the best tax option. If you're a one truck owner operator company, you probably need to be trying to make $50,000 a year or more. With the way the world is today, that's not as much as it used to be, and try to be an S corporation.
If I am running one truck, should I consider getting a LLC, or should I be a S Corp, C Corp? I mean, what would you do in your own personal opinion?
I was at a NASTC convention one time in Tennessee, the National Association of Small Trucking Companies, and they had a lawyer speaking. Forget his name. I wasn't prepared. I think his name's Henry Seaton from Virginia. And he said, "You're here today. Thank you very much for coming and listening to me, but I want you to stand up and leave right now. Leave this room, get in your vehicle, and drive home. If you have anything in your name, your personal name, go get it out of your name." And that means starting an LLC or a corporation. Legally, get the rolling stock out of your name, get it into a shell, a corporate shell or an LLC, to protect it from legal liability, to separate your personal from your business assets. That's one decision on its own, period. And I've never heard any lawyer say, yes, you should keep your business assets in your personal name. So that's the first step. Then the lawyer does that, or you can go to LegalZoom, which I recommend you get a professional to help you. The second step is go to your CPA and say, okay, I've got an LLC. How do I get taxed? Most lawyers are going to tell most owner operators with one truck, do an LLC. There's less paperwork involved, less requirements involved, less voting requirements, less corporate requirements. Corporations aren't bad, but if you're a one-man shop, one-man trucking company, they almost always tell people to get an LLC. Then you come to me or your CPA or someone else that helps you with taxes. Then we decide what's the best tax option. So you don't decide between an LLC and an S Corp, because S Corps many times are LLCs. You have to remember, one is in the eyes of your state and one is in the eyes of the Internal Revenue Service. One for legal protection, and then you take that and you can choose your tax status from that.
Most people, as they grow their company and they have employees, is that when they get their LLC and more or less think about going S Corp versus, a sole proprietor, because that's when they have payroll and all that?
The biggest advantage to an S corporation is that you're required to go on the payroll. So let's say after all of your expenses, let's say you make $50,000 a year after expense. Well, you can go on the payroll and pay yourself, say, a reasonable salary. The IRS requires you pay yourself something reasonable. Let's say that's, to make the math easy, let's make that $30,000. So you made 50, you take 20 as an employee, or you take 30 as an employee. What happens to the other 20? You still pay federal and state income tax on it, unless you live in Florida or Texas with state income tax, a couple other places. But you don't pay Social Security and Medicare tax, which is 15%. So if you can take $20,000 and shield that from that self-employment tax, you save $3,000. Plus you're paying your taxes every week or every month. And you make more money. Let's say a guy makes $70,000, and let's say maybe he thinks 45 or 40 is reasonable. And then if you can shield 30,000 from that 15% tax, now you save $4,500. What I like to say is, if you're an S corp, we're going to pay you a reasonable salary. We're also going to pay you your per diem right from the corporate checking account, which is tax-free to you. And that eats into these numbers, and you start bumping down your the portion of your pay that's subject to the additional Social Security and Medicare tax, which we call self-employment tax. That's the biggest thing about an S corp. There are some other benefits too. The S corp might rent an office from you, which is really not that much of a benefit. There are other things you can do, but the number one biggest one is hide your money from the Social Security and Medicare tax. Now, some people
I
want to
got
pay
you.
into that and pay more. Most guys tell me, I'd rather put money in an IRA than give it to Congress. I don't want Congress to manage my retirement fund for me. People have different opinions, but that's the biggest thing about an S corp. You can save some money there.
It's funny, David, because I'll be honest with you, the way I personally run my business is I'm a LLC and I'm a S corp, and the reason why I do that is because one, it keeps me from spending all my money because I pay myself a salary, right? And two is
Hmm.
just like what you just said. I'm not paying
Absolutely.
those extra taxes for the Medicare and all that. And so in the trucking world, a lot of people they go under because they don't have extra money away for maintenance funds. They don't have extra money away to actually run their business. So when you actually go under S corp and you pay yourself a salary, you're humbling yourself and you're keeping your business thriving. So I'm reading the writing on the wall. I'm just, kind of playing devil's advocate in the questions I ask you so that
Sure.
the mother truckers out there have a good understanding. So if you
Uh,
are more conservative, want to save more money, and all, would you recommend, in your opinion, that all owner operators, regardless big or small, go LLC and possibly go S corp if it was you doing it yourself?
I think the answer is usually there. The very first year, you may buy a truck your very first year, and you can manage your taxes to an extra depreciation write-off, and maybe you won't really have any tax that year. But I don't know how often everybody's buying a new truck or an
Right.
expensive truck. So I said generally, you probably ought to be in over the life of your trucking company, over a 10 or 20-year lifespan of being in business, an S corp will save you money. Some
I
years
got
it
you.
may not, but most years it will, and over the life of it, it will. You have to do payroll, so you've either got to learn it, or you have to pay someone to do it. And I know that ADP is a large nationwide payroll processing firm, um, and I think they're kind of inexpensive. I think they charge less than I do, but ADP will also try to. I don't want to get sued or anything, but they'll try to add on things. I've seen a guy that they sold a 401k to. His 401k fees were higher than his payroll fees. So, okay,
Wow.
I won't charge you very much to do your payroll. By the way, would you like to buy this, this, and this? Upselling, and you know what I mean. I tell people
Yeah.
we charge about 125 bucks a month to do payroll and manage your per diem like that through there. Pay all your payroll taxes, print your payroll check out for you, do your direct deposit, send you a professional looking pay stub. 125 a month, 12 months, a year is $1,500. So if you're only saving 3,000 in my example on payroll taxes and you're spending 1,500 on a CPA to do your payroll, you need to say, is that worth it to me? If you're saving 3 or 4 or 5,000 and you're spending 1,500, it's worth it. Um, but it also provides a structure and a discipline, and you can have somebody doing your payroll and your bookkeeping. It's your money; you take it out whenever you want. But just the fact someone's helping you like that, oftentimes it just helps people be more rigid and structured and not let the money get away from them.
I
So
like
again,
that.
if you're going to do payroll, that's an expense one way or the other. But
No,
the
I
question
like
is,
that,
how much
David.
of an expense is it? Well, good.
I like that, David, because really what you're doing when you have an S corp is you're setting yourself up for one, for yourself to be more humble and pay yourself a less of a salary, and for two, the foundation for building a real company. A company with drivers and employees. Because at the end of the day, if you're going into business, you're going in to elevate and to grow. I would believe. You know, uh, Before I let you go, what would be one example why someone wouldn't want to do an S corp, and why would they get an LLC but go sole proprietor? What would be the biggest benefit to that person?
In other words, to be an LLC but not be an S corporation.
Yeah, but be yeah sole proprietor. Yep.
Okay. Well, I think you don't make much money, but not to be critical about that, but there's just not enough of a savings there, and you just don't care. LLC gives you your limited liability protection. It's like insurance, and then maybe you don't have to work as much, you don't truck as much, and there's not enough there for a savings. or you don't want to maybe get into workers' compensation in the state that you're in. In Ohio, it's really not that bad. But generally, if you're going to work, if you're working to make money and making as much as you can, you probably want to lean toward an S corporation.
So if you're a guy
But
like
an S
me, where I
corporation,
do
you can do.
where I do YouTube half the time, right, David? Half the time I'm doing YouTube, I'm driving a truck
Yeah,
here
yeah,
and there. So for a guy like me, a sole proprietor might be more beneficial. I don't have the expenses of payroll and all this and that because I'm at least protected on the minimum side, but yet I'm not having extra expenses because
sure.
I'm just driving a truck, you know, 3 months out of the year.
An S corporation wouldn't be as attractive if you got $30,000 or $40,000 a year of income. It's not as attractive. If you get 50 or
Got it.
more, and the further above 50 you get, the better and better it gets. Um, the IRS requires you to pay yourself a reasonable salary. So if you're driving every week, 50 weeks a year, what would it cost to put somebody in a truck and get them to do that? Would it cost 35 or
Gotcha.
40 or 50? Then you're required to pay yourself. Because what you would like to do is say, um, I made $20,000 last year, and I took 20,000 out as a paycheck. I took 40 out that I protected from the self-employment tax instead of the other way around. The tendency would be to say, well, I had no payroll and all of my money was in S corporation earnings, not subject to the self-employment tax. So the IRS
Mm,
knows that, and they require you to pay yourself a reasonable salary. There's judgment in there. If you made $100,000 and you paid yourself 50 or 60, that might be on the low end, but you might say I could pay someone 50 to drive the truck for me. Therefore, I'm going to pay myself 50, and the other 50 I'm going to take out as draws, and not pay the Social Security and Medicare tax on it. So you get
got it.
closer to 50 and beyond 50, you start making money.
So that's the draw you would
You
say.
start
So
saving
okay,
money.
so if you're making that's gross, right? If you're grossing less than 50,000, just be LLC
After
sole proprietor,
after
correct?
all your expenses,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
But I'm talking
okay.
about the
So
net
we're
income,
talking
what's left
after all
over.
your so
And see that
we're talking
net
net.
income,
Okay.
all
Okay.
expenses, including depreciation, which fluctuates depending on when you buy your truck and what truck you buy. I know
Mm,
I saw a company one time go from just a handful of trucks to quite a few trucks as a sole proprietorship, but he was buying new trucks every year and he was buying expensive brand new trucks. And he was able to manage his tax liabilities through purchasing and growing instead of trying to save money on payroll tax. But if you're a one truck owner operator company, you probably need to be trying to make 50,000 a year or more. With the way the world is today, that's not as much as it used to be, and try to be an S corporation.
I got it. I got
I
it.
heard a
That's
story one time, and there was an accident. A company driver uh, hit a guy out in California, and he passed away, unfortunately. He was married with three kids. Just happened to be a brain surgeon, and the wife and the kids were, say, 30, 35 with the wife, and kids were maybe, between 8 and 12 years old, and they had all kind of planned on going to Harvard or Yale. And so this company, um, obviously, they got sued for a much larger amount of money than if he just would have ran over me or you. And I'm not trying to be morbid. This is what we deal with. And so that company got sued so badly that it went far above their insurance abilities, which has been like 10, 15 years ago. I think it was about $1 million back then. And I think they were in Oklahoma, if I remember the story correctly. But they were completely out of business. But if they were properly in a shell, an S corporate LLC, even though the insurance got exhausted, hopefully the owner of the company got to keep his house, got to keep his car, his personal checking, his personal savings. That's what we're trying to protect is your personal assets. Insurance is huge. You have to have the insurance, but you can do something. It's possible to do something that you'll get sued for 2 or 3 times what your insurance will pay. Then they come after your business assets and your personal assets. That's why we're trying to build this firewall between the business and the personal. And I know you know something about that, but there's an example in trucking of something that actually happened, and
wow.
it was
Yeah. So
awful,
you gotta
awful for the
protect
human
yourself, people.
aspect of it.
You
Oh
definitely got to
yeah.
protect yourself. You know what I'm saying? And so, no, thank you for the example. Yeah. At the end, anything you want to leave people with as well? And then we'll call it a day, and I'll cut it.
Well, I'm just happy to be here, Alex. We're happy to help truckers and help owner operators, and you can visit our website at truckerstaxreturns.com. And there's some useful information there that can help you wherever you get your taxes done. Thank you very much.
Hey, that's it. Well, yeah, overall, I got it, brother.
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.